It's not good for the climate because everything you produce new, you have also to have a lot of energy, a lot of material again to distract materials from the earth. For instance, 1 ton of raw material for copper only produces 1 kilo of copper afterwards. And we need a lot of copper for windmills, for instance, electric cars need about 140 kilos of copper. And that's really a problem. And you have toxic substances. So what we have to do, have to find new designs which are not toxic, which are not dangerous, which are good for the nature and good for the health. Even a little thing like a yogurt pot has a lot of chemicals in it, which can be harmful for the environment, for the health, and that's why we have to rethink and redesign everything. If you think about microplastic, for instance, you see a lot of synthetic fibers, clothes, which run into the oceans or into the rivers. And you have, for instance, car tires. Nobody knows that they have a lot of microfibers which go into the atmosphere, and they are then the microplastic which swims into the rivers and into the oceans. And you see these poor little birds in Helgoland, which I have taken a picture of, which have their nests on fisher nets, which are not biodegradable, and they can build out things out of that. And there are calculations that in 2050 there is more plastics in the sea than algae, and that's not a good idea, I think. That's why we have to come to this concept of cradle to cradle, where we think completely and invent completely things in a new way. Everything has to be redesigned. We need consumption projects which can be biodegraded, which can be composted, and we have to have technical products which are service to you, which you can then take back and use the materials again. And that's a completely different kind of thinking. That's a thinking where engineers and designers have really worked together. Think about the materials they choose, think about how they do it in the future, and what they do from the beginning to the end of the product, and then reuse the materials again. Probably not for the same product, but for an equal quality product. That's the important point, not downgrade. Like at the moment, plastics are recycled for whatever, pots or bags or whatever like that. And that's why our symbol is the cherry tree. The cherry tree shows a lot of things. Nutrients are nutrients. Everything is useful on the cherry tree, even every blossom. It uses only renewable energies. That's what Cradle to Cradle is doing. And it celebrates diversity. We cannot reduce everything to efficiency, because then you would think about only having 1 pill and a glass of water for nourishing the people of the world. That's not what we think about. We want varieties, art, music, everything is diversity, celebration of diversity. And that's what we have to put into our thinking as well. Not thinking of one way to solve things, but a lot of ways to solve things. And if you look at the tree, you see that it produces even oxygen, that produces biomass, that supports biodiversity and provides habitat, for instance, for birds and for insects, which are so necessary for the world. And that's where we have to think in the same systems. So what the system shows is that you have products which you use every day, like detergents, like even t-shirts, and everything which you can use and which doesn't get better over the ways. And that has to be biodegradable, it has to be compostable. And the colors, for instance, have also to be thought in this way. A lot of companies already think about biodegradable things, but then they use the wrong colors, and they are toxic or they are not biodegradable. And that's very important as well. And on the technical side, you have to come to a service system. We are thinking in these terms a little bit more these days, because we are already renting cars or bikes or whatever only for the use. And this thinking has to come into the use as well for products. So if you think about things you need like cups like that, then they have to be biodegradable. And if you think about technical things, they have to be constructed in a way, engineered in a way, designed in a way, that they are nice, that they are beautiful, and that they can be easily dismantled, and that the materials can be used again and again. This chair is already pretty old. It's probably 12, 14 years. But it has proven that it's possible that you can choose the right materials and that you can reuse it and that you can take the materials in the same way afterwards. So where we have to come to is come away from cradle to grave thinking, what we have at the moment. We think about products which are thrown away and put into the garbage, incinerated, and then people talking about using the heat, and that's a good thing. No, it's not a good thing, it's a downgrading as well. We need to use the materials in the same way because materials are the rare source which we have today. It's really a problem that we only think about CO2 emissions, of climate, of energy, and not thinking about the materials which also uses, which we need for every product, for everything. Especially if you think about all the things which are in short use, like mobile phones or TV sets or computers. They are not used for a long time. So those have to be specially constructed in a way that you can dismantle them, that you can use them again. And you know, everything has its time. In 1992, I have cooperated with Hewlett-Packard to construct a computer which can be dismantled and where material can be used afterwards again. It was possible, it was presented on the Hannover Fair, but, you know, it was not the time. There was no incentive to buy this because there was no law which had to give back the materials, and there was not a shortage of materials. So, nowadays, I think everybody knows that resources are scarce. People think probably easier than that, and that's where we have to come to, that the design and the engineering is changed. So what we have to do is the target is that we think about quality and usefulness and go into eco-effectiveness instead of efficiency. I told you, efficiency means you only need a glass of water and a pill to be full. But you like to sit together with people and have nice food. And you need diversity. You need different countries' food. And what we have to come to is to celebrate this diversity. So, the main thing is reduce, recycle, yes. But if you recycle the wrong things, you haven't gained anything. So rethink, reinvent, redesign things, and use the right materials, and design it in a way that you can really use the materials again. And that is a very important point. And what I'm happy about is that the European Union has exactly with their Fit for 55 program and the Green Deal thought about this part, not only talking about emissions of CO2, but talking about also how can we put materials into circularity. The instruments are not good yet, but nevertheless, the idea is there already. What we have to come to is to give services, not to sell things. So the service of sitting on, then you can pay whatever, 1,000 times sitting on a chair and then you give it back and it can be dismantled. Or to look through the window for 30 years and to have light. And that saves money and that saves resources. And it's interesting for companies now, because the resources are getting more expensive, to do that. And we have to get now banks and institutions to invest in this idea of service systems. And that's where we still are missing a little bit and where we need cooperation. And I think it's a necessity. If you see how much materials you need for wind turbines, you need for a new laptop, or you need for the cars, you know that you have to find the materials back. And that's why it is so necessary to do that. I told you this example of copper, and I show you here how much copper is used in the past years and how few you have in the world. So, the risks with the iron world, the political crisis, all the wars, all the supply routes, that makes it necessary that we really change this way of producing, of inventing, and that designers and engineers work together, which they haven't done for a long time. And I think some of the companies are already doing it. For instance, if you look at some ventilators, they are doing it already. They're only giving the service. There are now solar systems, which is very important because the solar systems up till now were only waste. So they only rent the service out. And there are a lot of companies already producing these things. And I think it's very important also to talk about this idea of smart home. Smart home is nowadays that you insulate your house well and you have a lot of technique in it. We think a good house which is a good habitat for biodiversity, which has clean water, is good for the air, good for the animals around, and of course it's beauty, and that's where we have to also think about, and that's why we have to think in a new way also to construct our cities, so that they are houses like trees and cities like forests, and we have also a better climate at the same time. The microclimate changes completely, there's a lot of green in there. You see examples like the Fender Town Hall where you can go to, and we have an NGO, which is a Cradle to Cradle NGO, which tries to implement these things all over the world. Here in Germany, you have a lot of groups where you can do that. And if you want to know more about it, you can come to the Congress, which will be here at the TU Munich, Berlin, at the 8th and 9th September, and learn more about all the different products, services, and ideas of a lot of people. And I'm very happy that this year we will be the first time after 2020 again practical as well. So thank you very much for your attention. If you have more questions, of course, I will be there also after this presentations. And let's talk about it and make the change. Let's leave a positive footprint, not a less negative one. Thank you.